attitude is the opposite.
High fly ball, deep left field. Oh, 27, does it again.
Gone. Fernando Tatis Jr. with a 2-run shot has the Padres on the board.
Go. That's his 11th.
Driven out to deep center field. Going back, Springer turning, looking, see ya. Oh, what a shot by Judge. The Yankees lead 1-0.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Free Baseball. It's episode 19 today. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, fellow baseball nerd, Jake Crumpler. This is Free Baseball, presented by the Athletes Hub. Of course, we've got a lot to talk about. I'm going to kick it off with hot weeks from last week. Marcus Simeon, of course, big-name free agent, signed by the Rangers. Hasn't really had the best start, but had an amazing week last week. 29 plate appearances at 385. 448 on base, 769 slug, scored 5 runs, hit 3 dingers, 5 RBIs, stole 2 bags, tied for first in the majors with .7 FWAR. He had a 3 home run, 2 stolen base, double header during the week. That's pretty good. Season line not looking too hot, but kind of bounced a little bit up by that hot week. 217 average, 278 on base, a 345 slug, scored 31 runs. 6 home runs, 3 of which also in that doubleheader, which is crazy. 24 RBIs, 10 steals, 80 WRC plus. Not super hot. Jake, what are the thoughts on Simeon? Is this a hot week? Signs of better things to come, or what do you think?
I hope this is signs of better thing to come, as my hat suggests. I've been a fan of Simeon in the past. He's got huge power, set the major league record for home runs by a second baseman last year with more than 40. Absolutely insane. Obviously, we didn't think he was going to hit that level this year with the ball being dead end, and you don't really back up a record-breaking season with another record-breaking season. So I don't know. We still thought he was going to be good. But a lot of the time when a player signs a massive contract like he did in the offseason, I think it was like $175 million or something with the Rangers, you don't really, they sort of struggle a lot in that first season, whether it be like moving to a different home, like having to live up to the price of the contract. So there were lots of factors that led to many people expecting Simeon to fall well short of what he did last season, but I don't think they could have expected what he's been doing this year. And he's really finally got off the schneid, as some might say. I can pull it up, but he had like a really bad start to the season that turned around in the last few weeks. But that big doubleheader was the final, I don't know what to call it. It was like the final reckoning for him that just like turned everything around. Yeah, it was a 7-year, $175 million deal. He was batting under 200 with 1 home run entering the month of June, and he's like completely turned it around this month. And that one game was crazy. In the weeks since June started, so not including the last few days, just when I wrote the last top performers article, he drove up his batting average 23 points. Obviously, it's up to 217 now. I think he was batting 199. So he's driven it up, dropped it back down a little bit. He's still been contributing on the bases with steals, but he really was not doing what we expected him to do. Hopefully this turns around. I think he's one of those guys that was affected by the ball more than anybody else, because he's like a pull the ball, fly ball type of guy. And those guys are nominally affected by the dead ball because he's just trying to hit the ball in the air down the line and hope that it goes that extra few feet to just get over the wall. And so he's been pretty affected by that, especially in a new park. But yeah, he's obviously turning around. That doubleheader he had was absolutely insane. He was going off.
Yeah. We all hope he's going to bounce back. I mean, last season he was an MVP favorite. And now just kind of not super super hot out of the gates with Texas, along with Corey Seager, fellow big name free agent. Someone that's been having a pretty good season really quietly, swingman extreme, Ross Stripling for the Toronto Blue Jays on the 6th against the Royals. Worst team in baseball. 5 innings pitched. Gave up 1 hit, no earned, no walks, 2 strikeouts, generated 8 whiffs. It's good for a 26.8% called strike plus whiffs percentage. And then again on the 12th against the Tigers this time. 6 innings pitched, 1 hit given up again, 0 earns again, no walks, 4 Ks, 8 whiffs, 27% call strikes plus whiffs percentage. Beacon of consistency, just excellent so far. He's tied for second and among pitchers last week with .4 F4, not .F4. That doesn't make sense. On the season, he's got a 3-1 win-loss ratio. Pitched 43 innings, 35 strikeouts in those, 1 save, 3.14 ERA with a 2.97 WHIP, and a 1 even WHIP. He was kind of like an unheralded signing for the Blue Jays. I know they picked him up basically for nothing, and he's been really good. I mean, he's been solid both out of the pen and in spot starts when they need him, just doing a job. And not much else to be said about Ross Stripling. He's just been good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, recently came into the rotation. Forget who he's filling in for, but they had some openings in there, and he hopped right in and did his Ross Stripling thing. Allowing 2 hits across 2 starts is pretty impressive, even if he's not really striking anybody out. As those CSW numbers you read off, 27 or below, both of them around 27%, would suggest that he's not going to continue at this pace. You know, he's not missing enough bats. He's relying too much on weak contact and balls in play, which usually doesn't pay off too well. You read his FIP, which was pretty low, under 3, so that's pretty solid. But I don't think he's going to be this ace that he was this last week, but still wanted to point out an unheralded starting pitcher that was really solid this last week in 2 starts.
Of course, he is basically riding a career low in home runs per 9 and home run to fly ball ratio. Also career high ground ball percent. So it's probably not going to keep up, like you said. But Ross Stripling, solid guy doing solid guy things. And on to the players of the week. Byron Buxton, of course, of Minnesota Twins, their mercurial star. Hopefully can finally stay healthy. Super exciting. 333 average last week, 8 runs. 5 home runs, 7 RBIs, with a 1.512 OPS and a 0.7 F4. Just insane week for Byron Buxton and the Twins, who are making a run at the AL Central, not the NL Central. They'd be running away with that right now. The AL Central. Strong week for Byron.
Yeah, he hit all those 5 home runs in a 3-game span, and this is obviously players of the week, so this is covering a 7-game span. So he only needed 3 days to qualify for this list. Pretty crazy. He obviously deserved it. Been really, like you said, I've been really glad to see him stay healthy the whole year. Definitely super great to see one of the amazing talents in baseball stay healthy for the whole season, especially for a guy like him who has really only had 1 fully healthy season, and that was not at the level that he's been playing at. He's been pretty unlucky for the season. I think he's batting in the low 200s, and that's probably a result of his super low BABIP, which is probably a result of him hitting the most pulled fly balls of his career. But he's like a super fast guy who hits the ball hard, and like Tim Anderson has proven in years past, that usually gains you a pretty high BABIP. So when you're BABIP being in the 250s or whatever, it's pretty hard to believe that that's going to remain like that for the whole season. So I can see Buxton's average turning around, but nonetheless, he's been really worthy of all the praise he's gotten this season, and it's great to see him go off. When he gets on a tear, though, he is unstoppable. Insane. 5 home runs in 3 games. That's ridiculous.
Oh yeah. And on the NL side of things, Cincinnati Reds rookie pitcher, top prospect Hunter Green, went 12 innings, 15 strikeouts in those 12 innings, sub 1 ERA, 0.75, and led all pitchers last week with 0.6 F4. Throws gas, just insane. Reds have been picking it up, obviously, after winning 3 games. Hard to keep that pace for the full season. But Hunter Green looks really exciting. Great week for him. Definitely signs of things to come.
Yeah, he's been changing his pitch repertoire. He's a guy that throws like a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. I didn't include him in the hot weeks because we've talked about him before when he made his call up, but he's a guy who obviously throws high 90s fastball, which is very impressive. But in the modern era of baseball, that doesn't preclude you from being hit. Like, batters can handle upper 90s fastballs, especially ones like Green that don't really move a lot, and not that he has to like be throwing like, I don't know, Jose Alvarado like sinkers or whatever. Like he doesn't have to be throwing like Brusdar Gratterall or Emmanuel Clase, like a sinker or a cutter that goes 100 miles per hour, but just to have like a little bit of rise on his fastball or like less drop than it currently has. This is very flat, so it's pretty easy to hit. So what he's been doing is using his slider more often. I think he's using it more than 50% of the time, forcing batters to guess more often. His slider is pretty solid, obviously not like a Jacob deGrom-esque slider, nothing like crazy or anything like that, but it's a really solid slider that keeps batters off balance. So he's using that the majority of the time and then sneaking in the fastball. So it sort of makes the fastball play up, sort of keeps them guessing if they're having to play on that slider so often. And then he's just like, oh, here's 100 miles per hour. Like, pretty hard to play off that. So or get a hit off that. So I definitely like that he's changed up his pitch mix, especially after a couple starts where he was struggling, because he started off the year crazy, but he was riding unsustainable velocity. You know, he was at the top end of his velo, and, you know, probably wasn't going to be able to hold that for the whole season without his arm falling off. So I'm glad to see that either the Reds have figured out a plan for him to help him succeed going forward, or that he himself figured something out that will help him succeed going forward, which I'm really glad to see. I think he's a really great talent, and I think he's only going to improve if he keeps being able to make changes like these.
Speaking of changes, the Los Angeles Angels made a change in their manager. They fired Joe Maddon. We talked about it last week, where we thought it was both kind of weird that teams would fire managers midseason when there's like there's not much really to gain from it. It's not like you can really bring in a new philosophy. But they fired Joe Maddon. Funny story going around where he shaved his head, got a mohawk. Never got to show it to the team because he was fired the same day, which is very sad. Of course, feel bad for Joe Maddon, but the Angels were riding an absolutely disgusting skid, basically in a free fall, and they make the change, fire him. What are your thoughts on this move? I know, I feel like we'll probably have same thoughts on this.
Yeah, that mohawk stuff was it was like sad and funny. It wasn't even a shaved head, it was a mohawk. Yeah. It was just pretty funny, but also sad. It's sort of sucks. I mean, I like Joe Maddon. I think a lot of people like Joe Maddon, especially because he's one of those managers that started out with the Rays and was a manager that was sort of ahead of his time. And we've also talked about him already this year with his walking players with the bases loaded. So he's definitely eccentric. He definitely has some weird strategies that he likes to use a lot of the time. So he's definitely one of the most interesting managers. I've loved the way that he's managed Shohei Ohtani, especially last year, where he just allowed him to do what he wants. You know, it has been really good at making sure that he can make his starts while also playing in the field and getting his at bats and stuff. So it's been great to see how he dealt with Ohtani. So it's sort of sad to see him go, but yeah, like you were saying, it's weird to see managers go in the middle of the season. I think before this season, the last time we had seen that was when Mike Matheny was let go by the Cardinals, and that was a few years ago. So we really haven't been seeing that a lot. It's mostly like you see it mostly in September. You know, like, I don't know, the Tigers let go of like Ron Gardenhire a couple years ago. Before they signed AJ Hinch, and it was like September and they were way out of it. So it's just like, yeah, it's obviously not going to like do anything now. They just want to see like what they can do without him there or something. But yeah, when you're a team that's looking to be competitive and you let go of your manager mid-season, you really hope that fires up the boys. I mean, there's one really funny joke that the Baseball is Dead podcast with Jared Carabas and Dallas Braden talk about a lot, where it's like Joe Maddon said, like, when he was walking the bases loaded, he was just trying to fire up the boys. They just always joke about that now. They're just like, they're just like, he's just like trying to fire up the boys. I'm just like, what? How are you firing up the boys by walking the bases loaded? So funny. So yeah, hopefully this fires up the boys, gets them all going, because they really need to turn it around. They were in the midst of like a 13-game losing streak when he got fired, and they finally turned it around thanks to some Nickelback as their walk-up songs. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Pretty funny. Yeah. Poor Joe Maddon. I'm sure I would honestly not be surprised if the Phillies like hired Joe Maddon.
I can see that.
Yeah, it would be a very Phillies thing to do, I think, to hire a manager that was just fired like a few days prior. But yeah, pretty crazy to see two managers go in back-to-back weeks. You know, we may see another manager that we're going to talk about very shortly be the next one on the chopping block.
Of course. Speaking and Angels tried to back up, awful, terrible news of Joe Maddon's firing, playing in the City Connect jerseys. We did the ranking. We did the ranking relatively recently. It's the Rockies. We talked about that a couple shows ago. And in our rankings of the City Connect jerseys, I like the Angels ones. I think they're pretty sweet. They're designed mainly to look like the old time surfboards. I think that's pretty sweet. Fits pretty well. It's unique. I like it. I like the cream. I like the shoulders. I like the sleeve stripes, and I like the number and the font. Like it's a pretty sweet jersey. This would probably be in my top 5 for sure. City Connect jerseys.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be in the borderline of my top 5 at the very least. I agree with your sentiments about the jersey. I like how simple it is. I like that it still changes it. The Angels logo is sort of like, I don't know, like it was painted on by somebody by hand. You know, it's not like super
like
rigid or anything. It's pretty cool. The number sort of seems out of place a little bit just with that diamond around it. So I don't know what the inspiration for that was, but nonetheless, I was pretty confused by the like one sleeve with stripes on it and one sleeve with not. I don't know. I guess I need to read up on I need to read the thing that they put out about the inspiration about the whole thing, because I was like really confused by the one sleeve thing. But yeah, we didn't have this in our rankings. I think there's going to be 2 or 3 more jerseys released through the end of the year. So we'll do one more big update on our power rankings when all of them are released, but just want to keep everybody updated when these come out and give our thoughts on them. So I think this Angels one is pretty clean. Excited to see it on the field. It got leaked a few days before it actually came out, so people were already knew what to expect, but it's pretty interesting. It's not like super crazy like some of the other ones we've seen. I like that it's a little, I don't want to say muted, but it's a little like held back from being too insane or anything.
Yeah, it's a clean jersey. It's just, it doesn't have too much going on. I kind of like the one sleeve stripe. I think it's supposed to be like the big longboard or like for surfing or whatever, where it's got the stripe down the middle. They showed like a reference picture in some of the advertising material, and I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. It's just simple. It's pretty understated. I really like the A in the Angels. I think it just looks super clean. Solid jersey overall. Excellent work by the Angels. Some news on the prospect front. We love prospects around here, so we talk about them all the time. Gabrielle Moreno has been promoted by the Blue Jays, catcher prospect. He's the number 4 prospect in all of baseball, according to MLB Pipeline. And this year in AAA, he's hit 324, has a 380 on base, and has slugged 404 at AAA. Still super young. Catching prospect coming up to join potential all-star candidate at catcher, also on the Toronto Blue Jays that we may or may not talk about later, Alejandro Kirk. So yeah, pretty good move by the Blue Jays, who just keep bringing on their top prospects from the farm.
They lost Danny Jansen again to the IL, so that's why Marina was called up, and obviously the Blue Jays are trying to make it to the postseason, so they wanted to do the best they could. He really rose through the ranks last year in 2021, going from rookie ball to AA to AAA. He only had a few games at AAA, but played most of the season at AA, batting 373, 441, 651 with 8 home runs. And this year he only has 1 home run, so the power really hasn't been there like it was last year. But he's only 21 years old. I think that's right. 22 years old. My bad. He wasn't drafted. I'm pretty sure he was an international signing. So he's super interesting. He was signed by the Blue Jays for only $25,000 out of Venezuela in 2016. So he's been pretty interesting. He's a righty hitter, obviously a righty thrower as a catcher. Like you said, they already have Kirk, so he's going to be in more of a backup role, but I don't think they're afraid to use one or the other as a DH, depending on if they can hit. Like I said, Moreno hasn't been as good as he was last year, and that's sort of saying something even while he's batting 324. So he's a pretty special talent. You know, like you rarely see catchers come up this young. We saw that with Kirk last year, 22 years old last year. I think he's 23 this year. well, that would make sense. That would be pretty logical. And he's a catcher as well. I think the thing with Moreno is that he's like Kirk, I think, is a solid fielder, but Moreno's like a plus fielder, catcher, obviously. Great pop time, really good at throwing guys out. Framing is going to go by the wayside when we get robo-umps, so he might be, one of the elite catchers in the future when we have robo-umps, because he's so good at throwing batters out or throwing base runners out, and he's just a really good hitter at the plate. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He's the number 2 catching prospect, obviously, because Adley Rutschman is the number 1 prospect in all of baseball, and he hasn't used up his rookie eligibility yet. So excited to see what Moreno can do. I don't think he's going to have a ton of playing time, but I think he's a really interesting guy. I'm not sure that he sticks up for the whole year. I could see that, though, if he hits, but the Blue Jays are really trying to win. I could see them sending him down and calling Zach Collins back up and just letting Kirk play out the rest of the season, because Kirk has been amazing.
Yeah, solid move made by the Blue Jays here, trying to push for the postseason. A couple more bits of news for players on teams also trying to push for the postseason. Milwaukee Brewers, Eduardo Escobar, and the Los Angeles Angels.
New York Mets.
Sorry, excuse me. He was on the Brewers last year. The New York Mets, Eduardo Escobar, and the Los Angeles Angels, Jared Walsh, both hit for the cycle. Pretty cool. Usually get a couple of season, and both did it over the last week.
Very interesting. We're up to 3 cycles now on the season, after we talked about Christian Yelich a few weeks ago hitting for the cycle. That one was a pretty fun one, because he obviously did it against the Brewers and he's got all those records around it, and he's very close to breaking the all-time record of cycles. So fingers crossed Yelich can do it again. But speaking of the ones that just did this last week, we got, like you said, Escobar and Walsh. Walsh did it just a couple nights ago. Pretty impressive. I know Shohei was like a triple shy of the cycle, and a guy on my fantasy team was just like, oh, Shohei's triple shy of the cycle, and that guy also has Jared Walsh on his team.
That's
so
crazy.
He's like, he's on Shohei Ohtani watch for the cycle, and then another one of his players goes and hit for the cycle. He hit a home run and a triple in his last 2 at bats. So like he got the easy stuff out of the way first and then went homer and triple. Pretty cool. But it was one of the stupidest plays. Did you see how he got the triple?
I did not.
He hits a ball to center field. They got Khalil Lee out there. He's a rookie. The guy dives for it. He dove for a ball that would have been a single. And it was just like, I don't know. It's one of those situations where it's like, are the Mets in on it? Are they trying to get him the triple? Like, I feel like that happens so often, like a guy is a triple away from the cycle and a guy like dives for a ball. I'm just like, bro, just don't let him get the cycle. Don't freaking dive for a ball like that. Yeah. It goes all the way to the wall. It makes it to third, stand up, easily. It was a very easy one there. And Eduardo Escobar, speaking of my fantasy league again, this was another one of those crazy days for me after I picked up Brendan Rodgers a couple of weeks ago for his 3 home run game on a daily stream. This was Monday, I think. We only had 5 games. I think there were 6 games on schedule. One of them got postponed. And so I picked up Eduardo Escobar because I had some openings in my lineup, and somebody had just dropped him in my league after he was really struggling to start the season. And so I picked him up, and he went crazy. Probably outscored like the whole entire league with his cycle, because we get some extra points for a cycle in our fantasy league just because they barely happen. So it's a little more fun to get like 5 extra points. I think it might be 10 extra points, which is pretty insane. But he went crazy, scored more points for me even than Brendan Rodgers did in that 3 home run doubleheader where he had 3 home runs in one game with a walk-off. So I'm feeling like a fantasy baseball maestro, picking those guys up in back-to-back weeks with 20+ point outings as hitting streamers. So pretty cool. I'm sure people care immensely about how I'm doing in my home league, fantasy baseball league. So wanted to put that out there that I've just been the hot click. I better sign up for the lottery or whatever that saying is.
Jake's the fantasy guru. You can definitely check him out talking about relief pitchers at the Pitcher List, and read all of his articles on theathleteshub.org. Our parent site, of course, we love them. So please go read all of Jake's stuff. And you can read all of my ancient stuff because I haven't made anything. Oh, sorry, Devin. But couple more goofy baseball news to talk about with a geriatric man that happens to coach the Chicago White Sox. Tony La Russa decided to intentionally walk Trey Turner on a 1-2 count. Tanner Banks was in to pitch, but he wanted him to face Max Muncy. There was a runner on first. So there's a runner on first and second after that, after the intentional walk. No reason for that. Max Muncy, as you can imagine, the reason we're talking about it, hit a 3-run home run. Tony La Russa got egg on his face. The White Sox looked dumb. It happens. This was just a really stupid baseball moment last week, so we had to talk about it because it's really stupid. So what are your thoughts on this, Jake? Because this was just really goofy, and the White Sox, of course, are kind of faltering on the season, giving up a lot of ground to the Twins in the AL Central race right now. So I don't know. Tony La Russa, maybe his days are numbered.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking. It was something else. One joke I made on Twitter was that I think he might have been looking at the Trey Turner, the Apple TV probabilities for Trey Turner reaching base, because those probabilities are absolutely, I don't know, all over the place. It'll be like it'll be like 50% probability of reaching base, and you're just like, oh, okay, and then it'll go like 0-2. And it'll be like 75% probability of reaching base. And you're just like, what? That makes no sense. So maybe he was looking at something like that.
Maybe.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe he saw these other guys getting fired and he was like, oh, shoot, now's my chance. I have no idea what he was thinking.
I want out of here. I want to get fired.
Maybe he was trying to fire up the boys. Who knows?
Of course.
Who knows?
He should have intentionally walked 3 more batters.
I know. I don't know what he was doing. Like, if you have, like, he said, like, after he was interviewed, just like he was sort of like, I don't know if incredulous is the right word, but he was like, why are you like questioning my move? Is this really like a question? Is this really a debate? Like, this was a smart move. And it's just like, I don't know. He noted like Max Muncy's stats against lefties, but you can't do that. You can't go, oh, Max Muncy is worse against lefties than Trey Turner. Okay, then walk Trey Turner on the first pitch. You don't like Trey Turner's stats. Yeah, Trey Turner's stats against a lefty on a 1-2 count are worse than Max Muncy's on an 0-0 count versus a lefty. So like, you can't just be like, oh yeah. If you look at their base numbers, like, why didn't you make that decision earlier? That's the part that doesn't make sense to me. Like, if that was your reasoning that the next guy was worse against lefties, then just walk the first guy. Don't waste a few pitches. Like, it was literally, he got into 0-2 and threw 1 ball, and then he was just like, no, not doing this. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And Max Muncy, who's been having a really rough season and just returned from the IL, he took offense to it. Like, he was pissed afterwards. After they hit the home run, he was just like, you don't effing walk me, like, when he's got 2 strikes, like, F you, B word. He was sort of pissed about it. So he took offense to it. He hit a massive 3-run shot, made Tony look stupid AF for that. I don't know what he was thinking, but really not looking good. The White Sox have been struggling the whole season, so that really added insult to injury. Poor Tanner Banks probably was just like, whoa, what? I got 2 strikes on freaking Trey Turner. Yeah, I got 2 strikes on freaking Trey Turner. Why would you walk him? I was like so close to striking out, and like, even if Turner had gotten a hit, then it's just like, oh, okay, 1 run scores, and then now you still have to face Muncy, but now you put 2 guys on, and Muncy, it's a 3-run home run. Obviously, it's different in hindsight, but that move made no sense. You can do that. That move makes sense if there's an 0-0 count, but it doesn't make sense when you've already got 2 strikes on a guy. He's so close to being out. It really, he's losing his mind.
Right. Well, Jake, you have to understand probability. Probability is fake. Everything is like, if it's 50%, that's Tony La Russa. It's 50%. It's either going to happen or it's going to not happen. Which was really dumb in that situation, because like, for his career at the time, Trey Turner went down 1-2 in the count. Has a career 231 average of 66 WRC plus, and against left-handed pitching, Max Muncy is struggling this year. But for his career, he has a 132 WRC plus and 251 average. So Muncy, historically, he's a great hitter. I mean, he's struggling this year, but he's not a bum. He didn't magically turn into a bum overnight. Don't walk in that situation. It's so stupid. Yeah, just totally goofy thing to talk to even mention, because it's a totally goofy thing to happen in baseball. Tony La Russa, yeah. I don't know what that guy's deal is. Yeah, White Sox are in big trouble with that guy.
They've been. Who could have seen this coming?
Who could have seen this coming? We didn't talk about this at all. Yeah, just totally dumb. Before before we get into the All-Star debates, I guess we'll take a little intermission.
Oh, Robinson Cano.
All right, now that we got that out of the way, we can talk about our All-Star debates. Thank you to the the San Diego
Chihuahuas. Rancho Cucamonga.
Yeah, shout out to the Rancho Cucamonga Chihuahuas for that excellent jersey and that excellent picture of Robinson Cano in the SpongeBob jersey. And we are going to get into our All-Star ballot debates. Of course, you can now fill out your All-Star ballot, and you definitely should do that. And I think it's a good time that we talk about it. If Isaiah was here, just be a bunch of Yankees. So we'll talk about our totally unbiased ballots. In my case, totally unbiased. But I'll let you go, and you can have the floor. Do you want to split it up, where we just kind of both say our picks for like the AL, NL, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I think we'll go position by position. We'll just say who we got. We can start AL and then go NL and so on and so forth. So for the American League at first base, we'll go first base, second base. We'll go in the order that they make you vote: first base, second base, third base, shortstop, catcher, outfield, DH. So we'll start at first base. I think this was sort of a 2-horse race. Like, obviously you got Vlad Jr. out there. He's not been doing what you expected him to do. And you got a guy that I touted as a bust for the year, and that hasn't really paid off. And so I went with my boy on my fantasy team, Luis Arias, who's been absolutely killing it, batting .359 for this season. He only has 3 home runs. He hit a grand slam the other night off Shane Baz in his return. That was 2 nights after hitting a home run off Garrett Cole, and that brings him to 3 on the season. He's got an .876 OPS, but that average is the biggest thing. He's just probably the premier contact hitter. It was obviously Steven Kwan for the first few weeks of the season, but Luis Arias said, "Are you kidding me? As a rookie, I am the champion of elite contact hitters with no power," and he's been absolutely insane. He walks more than he strikes out. Just, I don't know. He's like Jose Ramirez if Jose Ramirez didn't hit home runs and steal bases. Yeah, just absolutely insane. He's so good.
Yeah. Shout out to Luis Arias. I was debating picking him, but I did not. I went for the obvious choice, which is Ty France. Ty France has been probably, outside of Luis Arias getting for a ton of contact, he's just been the best overall well-rounded hitter at first base in the AL this year. 9 home runs. I believe he's got 30-something RBI.
38.
Yes, 20. He has 28. It's 38 RBI. Excuse me. 404 on base. He's just been excellent. He's got a 165 WRC plus, and of course, Jake wasn't super high on to start the year. I was kind of indifferent. It is what it is. Ty France, he looks like a stud. He's my pick for first base.
Yeah, he's been killing it. There's definitely, I definitely considered him. I just am biased by having Arias on my fantasy team. Big fan of his, but I think honestly that France will get there over him unless Vladdy just has like a crazy next month or so. Like, there's only a month until the All-Star game, so there's really not much competition there. It's just going to be those 3, I think, are going to be the biggest guys, unless Jared Walsh starts hitting for the cycle every game.
Maybe.
But yeah, let's move over to the National League at first base. I think this one is like a 2-horse race. I think you can throw a guy on the Dodgers in there as well. The Dodgers first baseman, Freddie Freeman, who was just signed to a big contract this offseason, but I don't think he's in the same tier as these other 2 guys. And it's like a 2-horse race, but one of them is like sort of killing it, while the other one is also sort of killing it, just not at the same degree. So I'm going with Paul Goldschmidt. I think this one was like, it was like not clear cut, but when you look at the other option, which I don't know if you picked him, so I'm not going to name him. You can name him when we get there.
Oh, no, but, I totally picked Paul Goldschmidt.
Okay. Yeah, the other guys beat Alonso. So I thought Alonso had a really good case because he's hit more home runs than Goldie, which is obviously not all voting is up to be, but he's batting .284, which is a career high for him. I think he's leading the National League in RBIs at 57. He's been killing it. And I can definitely see, like, with one more month, if Goldie doesn't keep up the pace he had in May, that it's going to be like neck and neck. Like, it's going to be really up to which fan bases vote more for the guy, which is usually you can bet on the Cardinals for that. Like they're like the Royals from what was that, like 2013 or whatever.
They got like everybody in the All-Star
I think it was 2015. Yeah, they just literally like I'll see this Escobar batting like 208 as starting shortstop. You know, they had Nori Aoki in the outfield and stuff. It was crazy. But yeah, Goldie's been on an MVP level this year.
Yeah, shout out to Goldie. Jake said everything about him, so I don't need to go into any more detail about Paul Goldschmidt. I prefer not to. He plays for the Cardinals. So moving back around to the American League, for second base, I picked former New York Met Andres Simenes, now playing for the Cleveland Guardians. He's had a really solid season, very quietly. I know the Guardians have they started out really hot. They've kind of slid a little bit. Still doing pretty well. Andres Simenes has gotten like no fanfare. He's been excellent this year. Of course, and he was a really high rated prospect for the New York Mets. And they traded him, of course, to get Francisco Lindor. But, you know, this year, Jimenez at second base, 7 home runs, hitting .303, not walking a ton. He's got a 144 WRC plus, and he's just been everywhere. He's been really good for them, hitting for a lot of contact. You know, like I said, he doesn't really walk much. Kind of one of those players that hits for contact but refuses to walk, which I don't understand. Has been really good. He's got 6.5 defensive WAR. So, you know, he's been good. Good season for him. I didn't want to go with Altuve. Sorry. I got the hater glasses on today. But yeah, Jimenez for me. He's my pick. Yet to make an error this year. As well. He's just been good.
Pretty impressive. Yeah.
Shout out to Jimenez.
Yeah, he was a top prospect. It's dope to see him going off. I must have skipped over him because I was just like, whoa, there's literally nobody else. It's literally Altuve by himself. But I think Jimenez definitely has a case. I'm not sure he holds on to it for the rest of the first half, but he'll definitely have a case, especially with how many people hate Jose Altuve after the Astros sign stealing scandal, obviously. So I think that takes a lot of votes away from him. It didn't take my vote away from him, to be honest. I've got Altuve.
Still a great player, of course.
I've got Altuve in a lot of fantasy leagues. Yeah, he's really good. He's obviously got more homers than Jimenez. He's only batting .279, which is I say only because it's Jose Altuve, and he has been known to bat like .350 and stuff in the past. So he's really impressive. He's turned into more of a power hitter, which is really weird. But he's really good. I think Jimenez obviously has a case, but I'm going with Altuve. He's just one of the elite bats, but it's crazy to see that there's so much star talent at AL second base with like Simeon, Story, Jorge Polanco, Whit Merrifield, Brandon Lau, and all of them are terrible. I think a guy to keep an eye out for is Santiago Espinal. He's been turning it around a lot. I think he's going to finish with a very similar first half to Jimenez. So if people really are hating on Altuve and they won't vote for him, then it becomes a 2-horse race, I think, between Jimenez and Espinal. If Espinal keeps rising and Jimenez sort of drops off a little, but right now I could see Jimenez, taking it off just because of the hatred for Altuve.
Of course. Moving on to the National League. Who's your pick for second?
This was an easy one. I think this was like the easiest one. You know, you look through all the guys and you're just like, Jeff McNeil batting over 300, batting 320 actually. And maybe Gene Segura would have had a chance if he had not broken his finger, but you have a lot of, again, star players that have been injured or not as good. So it's clearly Jazz Chisholm for me. Right. The man, the legend, Dennis Rodman of the Miami Marlins. That stuff is so
That's so dumb.
He's going to get traded to the Dodgers, and I'm going to cry.
Public enemy of the Marlins dugout, apparently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's so good, so young, so exciting, and just fun. He's everything that baseball ought to be, and everything that a team should hope for out of their young star. Mm-hmm. He's having a good season on top of that, on top of being very exciting, a good personality, 2 WAR, 135 WRC plus. He's hit 12 home runs, not really walking. Another guy that just doesn't really, he's like got a 306 on base, which is not awful, not super good either. But hitting for a ton of power, really good fielder. Yeah. Jazz Chisholm's like by far and away the starter at second base, for now for me in the National League.
Yep. All right. Excuse me, doing a little burping from the water I just drank. Definitely great podcast material. Let's move over to third base, American League. This is, I think, a 2-horse race again, where it's very similar to the first base National League debate, where you have two elite guys and one of them has just been absolutely insane while the other one has been like super strong the whole year, but just might be overshadowed by the other guy. I think the choice should be obvious, but the guy on the Red Sox is making it really hard. It's Jose Ramirez for me. He's just been absolutely insane. We talked about it the other day when our site owner, Devin Withers, was talking up Aaron Judge, which is very fair. Aaron Judge has been killing it. He's on pace for over 60 home runs, would be the first guy to do that legitimately since Babe Ruth. Roger Maris. Sorry, bro. Yeah. So,
or Roger.
Yeah. Just he's been absolutely insane. He somehow got more home runs than strikeouts, which that like doesn't even compute, especially in today's game. It's absolutely insane. The last guy to do that was Barry Bonds. I think it was.
He's the only guy that's done that, I believe.
Was he the only one? Because
I'm pretty sure he's the only player in history that's done that.
That's crazy because guys used to not strike out at all. Some guys would like strike out like 7 times a year. So
but
I don't know.
Also
because
hit like 1 home run a year too.
Yeah, I don't know because the tweet that I saw noting that statistic said the last player to do that, but they didn't specify that he was not the only one. So yeah, I think you can be.
He might be the first. He might be the first one like in the actual live ball era.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I mean that's absolutely insane to be doing that. He's walking more than twice as much as he's striking out, which is something that like you rarely ever see nowadays either. Like that's something like only Juan Soto does. And the fact that Joe Ram's doing that with incredible power, batting over 290 and leading the majors in RBI while also stealing like 8 bases. He's just the all around. He's a switch hitter too. He's so insane. He's so mind blowing. I don't know how he just keeps getting better. It's really disappointing. It's not disappointing that Judge is having such a good season. It's really disappointing that Jose Ramirez might fall short again from the MVP conversation after he's fallen short like a couple times recently when he's really been deserving of more conversation and is one of the most, I don't even want to say underrated. He just like doesn't get talked about enough as like the best player in baseball when he's like so clearly like absolutely insane. Like I don't know. There's so much you can say about Jose Ramirez and yeah, he's obviously my choice there.
Right. I also chose JRAM, but it's funny because when I filled out my ballot on the website, I accidentally refreshed it after I had done it. And the first time I was like, oh, okay, cool. I saw like Rafael Devers and I picked it. Yeah. And I saw it again. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. I missed something.
Where's Jose? Yeah, I missed something.
I missed something. Yeah, it's Jose Ramirez. Rafael Devers, of course, having an amazing season.
Yeah, he's killing it.
It's
too bad.
But it's crazy. Like the season that Devers is having just kind of pales in comparison to what JRAM's doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I mean, for me, he's the MVP in the AL right now. Judge is like 1A and or like 1B to Jose Ramirez is 1A. But JRAM, yeah, it's clear cut. I mean, he's the starter at third base. He's so good.
Yeah. And then National League, I think this is going to be one of the most interesting races. You got a lot of guys that can be considered. The guy that I chose had a really hot April and it sort of slowed down since then. That's Manny Machado of the San Diego Padres. Not the most likable guy, especially when he wore that Let's Go Brandon shirt a while ago. Maybe not something that you, I don't know, wear as a baseball player, but oh well. Maybe not something I should be mentioning in a baseball podcast. Oh, I can't remember if that was preseason or like right at the start of the season. He didn't like wear it to a game or something, but it was just like, oh, you're one of those guys. Okay, I see. Yeah, nonetheless, politics aside, he has been absolutely insane. Batting over 300. He's batting 323 now. There was a point like a couple weeks ago where he was batting like 380. He was killing it. So he slowed down a lot. He's stealing a lot more bases than he usually does. But there's a few guys that are up and coming. I think obviously Austin Riley's got a chance to make some noise in this vote. Eduardo Escobar. No, I'm kidding. But I think it's like him and Arenado as well. So who did you choose?
I chose Manny Machado. I've been banging the Machado drum all year. I know he's slowed down some, but Machado is so good. And I'd still bet on him to really just pick that pace up again. Baseball is about peaks and valleys, and he's shown this year when he's at his peak. I mean, he's insane. Great bat to ball skills, hits for a ton of power. Hasn't been hitting for as much power this year, but still, I mean, he's just so good. Perennial Gold Glove caliber defense at third. Manny Machado. Goofy shirt aside, he's an excellent baseball player, and it's hard for me to not pick him.
Yeah. Otto was also another guy who had a really hot April and has slowed down a lot. He's really fallen back a lot from that April. But he's a guy that can go on a streak. He's like one of the best hitters of the last decade, so you can never count him out. And obviously Austin Riley, I think, is the premier power guy. Third base. He's up to 16 home runs now. Sporting a 850 OPS. He's not really hitting the same sort of average as he was last year. Got the strikeouts back up again. But I think he's a guy who could really sneak up there if he sort of has a hot next month. And Machado and Otto both continue to fall. But right now, I think it's sort of, I don't want to say clearly, but I think Machado's really got it right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Moving on to the AL side, this time for shortstop. I think this is kind of, for me, this was a 2-horse race. And once again, even though I think I have the right opinion, I did have a little bit of hater in my heart for this pick. And I chose Jeremy Pena. I think Jeremy Pena is, for me, I think he's the best shortstop in the AL right now. With how Correa has kind of struggled a little bit. He's been picking it up, but the start that he had to the season was so bad. He's still kind of trying to climb. Bogarts has had a good season as well, but Jeremy Pena, I mean, he's been the best defender at shortstop. He's worked the most WAR. He's having a great season. He's hitting the ball well too. Yeah, Jeremy Pena was my choice for shortstop.
That's a great pick. I definitely considered him. I had just seen a tweet that by Passan that he was leading all shortstops in, I don't know, what was it, like average WAR or something. So it's just like
he's leading. He's leading them all in F4 and B WAR.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's what he meant by average WAR. I couldn't tell if he was like trying to say like, oh, if you like average it out over the same number of games for all of them, since it's like a counting-esque statistic. But yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. Yeah. That's pretty cool. From a rookie. I did not go with him. I actually went with a guy that you didn't even mention. You mentioned Correa, who's been off and on the IL, which has really held him back this year. He also got off to a really slow start. And you mentioned Bogarts, who's been really good. Batting 320, not the same power as he usually has. I went with Tim Anderson.
He's the one that I was saying on.
Yeah. He is a bit controversial this year, obviously, with the Josh Donaldson stuff. Everyone took Anderson's side there, even Josh Donaldson's own teammates. But I think he's been injured a little bit recently, and that's why he hasn't been adding to those counting stats. But batting 350 atop a White Sox lineup, that is pretty solid most days. He's just he's one of those guys that you don't understand how he's so good. He doesn't walk. Actually, I think he's been walking a lot more this year. He used to not walk. He strikes out not at the craziest rate. Okay, maybe it was the other way around. I think he used to strike out a lot, and now he doesn't strike out anymore. That's what it was.
Yeah, but he doesn't walk either. He absolutely refuses to walk.
Doesn't walk. Yeah, refuses to walk. He's got the strikeouts down. He sports like a 400 BABIP every year, and you're just like, oh, this is unsustainable. But he just keeps it going. He's just super fast. It's a ball hard. He's super fun to watch play. And I think if he gets back to health, he's going to put up some numbers that make him the clear favorite there. But I would love to see Jeremy Pena make it as a rookie. Obviously, on the Astros, nobody really likes the Astros anymore, but you can't really blame a guy that's now in his first season. And I sort of like him doing well too, because I mentioned him in like January as a guy that could be interesting this year. I don't think anybody was talking about him, and so I'm looking pretty prescient there.
Yeah, I was out on Anderson. Jeremy Pena he does everything for me. Tim Anderson, he doesn't walk. I know Jeremy Pena is still not excellent on that front either, but Jeremy Pena also provides a lot more value for me personally as a defender. Tim Anderson is a net negative defender at shortstop and basically has been for his whole career. Pena is first in among American League shortstops. He is first in F4, third in WRC plus, third in home runs, third in DRS, and he's first in outs above average. And he's a rookie. He just provides so much as a complete baseball player compared to Anderson, who obviously is a great hitter, but he's a miserable defender. So that's why I had to kind of be out on him. And on the National League side, I went with a guy that we already talked about. I went with Trey Turner. And Trey Turner, he's Trey Turner. NL shortstop has not really been as strong this year, especially considering the lack of Fernando Tatis Jr. Yes. Of course, Trey Turner has had a solid season, hit for some power still, like he always does, steals bases, hits for average. He's Trey Turner. I think he was pretty simple for me.
This one was a hard choice for me. Like nobody really stands out as like, oh, it's clearly that guy, and and it's not one of those positions where it's like there's such a lack of talent that you don't really know like who to choose. I think if Adames hadn't been injured for the last few weeks, that he would be right up there because he would be leading the position in home runs by a long shot. The thing is, he's already leading the position in home runs in the National League, and he's been out for like the last 3 weeks, which is insane. He's really good. I think he could still make a run for it. I can't pick him though because he hasn't played enough, and he's only batting 200 due to a really low BABIP. I think Tommy Edman is a guy who's really interesting, who's sort of like, he's the new Whit Merrifield to me, where he's just like a compiler. He plays every day. He's got that dog in him.
Ex-grit leader.
Yeah, exactly. Huge ex-grit guy. He doesn't have a ton of power. He steals a lot of bases. He can play all over the field. He's a solid fielder. He's a good contact bat. He doesn't he's not going to blow you away in any sort of way, but he's going to do everything, and he's going to play every single day, and he's going to be really underrated because of it, but he's a compiler in that sense. So I think he's a really interesting guy. I don't know if he's the all-star though. I think if you had just considered his first month, then yeah, but you also have Lindor. So like there's so many options. Like Lindor has been really solid, not what he used to be, but he's really interesting. I think he leads the position. Second in the position in RBI at 45. Trey Turner's got 46 somehow.
He plays for the Dodgers.
Yeah, that's what you get for having a guy batting behind Mookie Betts. But I couldn't pick Turner mostly because of the laundry. So I went with Dansby Swanson, who really had a rough first month of the season and turned it around like crazy. Last month, he made the top performers article for the month of May. He was batting in the low 200s. I think for the first month and a half or so, and now he's up to 290. He's got 7 home runs. I think he's gonna like set a career high in steals in like a couple weeks or something. Been super aggressive on the bases. Really great to see him be doing what he's been doing. He's moved up to like second in the lineup too, which is a great spot in that lineup for the Braves. I love what Dansby does. He was like one of my breakout picks for 2020, and that one paid off, especially fantasy wise. So I've always liked him. I don't know, like you don't really play fantasy baseball, but it's like you definitely have this feeling outside of fantasy baseball where you're just like, oh, this guy's going to be good this year, and then he's good, and then you love him for the rest of his life. You're just like, oh yeah, you made me look like a genius.
Of course, it's interesting you talked about Dansby Swanson because I mentioned Jeremy Pena for my pick for the AL. In the passing tweet, you mentioned the best shortstops in Major League Baseball this season by average WAR, of course, with minimum 75% of games played at the position. Jeremy Pena is number 1, and Dansby Swanson is number 2. So yeah, I mean that's really interesting because Dansby Swanson had such a terrible start, and he's just been tearing the cover off the ball ever since.
Yeah,
it was hard for me to not pick him too, but I was like, I'll go with Trey Turner.
You knew I wouldn't pick him.
yeah. That was basically my thoughts. I'm like, I'll pick Turner. I'll rattle Jake's cage a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And now we got a catcher. We got the backstops. We'll look at the top backstops. Even with so many catchers becoming like, I think we're getting a sort of changing of the guard at the catcher position, where guys like Real Muto and Yasmani Grandal and Salvador Perez have had not as great seasons, especially as they had last year. It's sort of like switching over to the young guard of catchers, but we're seeing we've got a lot more catching talent, which I feel like in the past like 5 years or so, we've really just had like 3 good catchers, and then everybody else has been terrible or like not living up to what we thought they would do. And in the American League, there's not really too many guys that have been absolutely insane that you're just like, oh, that, yeah, obvious there. And that's why I think I'm going with Alejandro Kirk. He really rose up the ranks recently. He's like a really fun player to watch. He's very like Williams Astudillo-esque, and that's mostly in body type. He's really good in the fact that he walks more than he strikes out, which is something that Astudillo did, but Astudillo did it in a different way. Astudillo just never walked, but then he also never struck out. Alejandro Kirk will walk like 10% of the time and strike out less than 10% of the time. So that's like really solid. You really don't see that at all throughout baseball. Like it's a very, it's not a statistic you see that often. And it's one that really shows that a player is really good at their position, or really good at the plate, really patient and can see the ball really well. And Kirk combines that by batting 300, even though he doesn't have, the speed that you would get from somebody batting 300. He can hit a few home runs. But yeah, I think I don't want to say he's the obvious choice because he hasn't had the full-time job the whole season, but the way he's been going the last couple of weeks, I think he's sort of risen up these ranks really fast.
Yeah, I also went with Kirk, and it honestly seems like nobody in the AL really wants to be the starting catcher for the All-Star team other than like Alejandro Kirk and Jose Trevino.
Mhm.
So I just went with Kirk because he's just played longer. Kirk Trevino's basically been like their backup catcher because the Yankees are insistent on playing Kyle Higashioka for no reason.
Mhm.
Kirk's really good.
Hey, whoa! Higashioka hit a home run off Frank Schwindel yesterday, bro.
He's still hitting like 120? Yeah, he's terrible. Don't talk about Frank. Talk about Frank like that. Yeah, so I went with Kirk. I thought he was like, I struggled. And I was like, I don't know who any of I couldn't pick one. I'm like, I don't want to pick Trevino. Like, I don't really want to pick him.
Jonah Heim has been pretty interesting, but
yeah, I saw him.
He slowed down a lot. His numbers are carried by like that first week.
But that's
it.
Like, I went with Kirk. So, kind of difficult for me.
Choice.
Yeah, I think so too. And for the NL side, of course,
clear, easy one. This is the easiest pick of the entire day.
Being a Cubs fan, I mean, it's Wilson Contreras. He's the best catcher in the National League. Hopefully they
best
don't
catcher
trade him.
in baseball.
Of course, and he's the best catcher in all of baseball, hitting for a ton of power, walking a lot. His framing has gotten excellent, which of course will be phased out with robo-umps. Really good receiver, cannon of an arm, stud. Love Wilson Contreras. Please give him money so he does not leave Chicago. Wilson Contreras is amazing. He's having honestly a career year so far. He's hit 10 home runs, walking a ton, which is something he's always like done a little bit, but now the strikeout percentage has gone way down, back to a little bit below where it's been for his career average, and he's just putting the ball in play. He's just doing it all this year. He's steadily improved year after year, and this is the year that he's finally just decided like, oh yeah, I'm really an all-star now.
Is he a free agent next year?
No, he is not.
2 more years?
I think it's 2 more years.
Okay.
I think he might be in his last year. I need to look at that.
Okay.
Maybe so. Hopefully not. Yeah, he's a free agent in 2023. You're right. So
okay.
They just reached a deal with him to avoid arbitration. So hopefully they will find a long-term
reach another deal. Yeah.
Because that franchise is miserable and basically has nothing else going for it.
Big loss last night.
Of course. They I think they got outscored by the Yankees like 22-5 in that 2-game series. Or something stupid like that. Yeah,
that's terrible. And they're the same Cubs that lost a series against the Pirates in which they outscored them.
They also are the same team that lost to the Reds 20-5. So,
it's been a crazy season for them. Contreras, though, absolutely insane. This was, I think, the easiest pick out of all of the positions. He was just so clearly the best catcher in the National League. Like you talked about, his reduced strikeout rate. That's something that I've been noting in the couple of times that I've mentioned him in top performance of the week. He has the lowest strikeout rate of his career. He's also got the highest hard hit rate of his career, according to StatCast. So, I mean, that's about as good of a combination as you can get to improve to your final form. But we've always known that Contreras is a guy that has a ton of potential. He was obviously a top prospect, came up, has always shown periods of hitting the ball like crazy. And this year, it may be just the light at the end of the tunnel that he's going to get out of Chicago. I'm joking.
Probably.
I think he likes playing in Chicago, but yeah, maybe it's something like that. He just wants to go off to get that massive payday. And I think he's going to be deserving of it because he's a really good talent. And he's always been really solid, even when he's not hitting like the best catcher in the league. And I think we can't go without mentioning Dalton Varshall. He's obviously not a catcher only guy. He really moved to catcher more recently when Alec Thomas was called up and moved into center field where Varshall was playing. Varshall's really good. He's got crazy speed that you don't ever see at the catcher position. I think he's an interesting guy. Obviously not going to take over for Contreras. Tyler Stevenson was solid before he went down with a broken thumb, I think, on his left hand. Too bad for my fantasy team once again. And Will Smith is a guy who can always turn it around. He's been really good. And you also got JT Realmuto in that league, but it's really clearly Contreras, and I don't think he's going to be giving it up.
Yeah. Shout out to Willie. Tom Ricketts, please sign him to a long-term extension. Or
sell the team.
Yeah. So do that one. I like that idea. moving on to the outfielder starters. Do you want to just run down all three for one league, or do you want to run down like 1 and 1 and then 1? You know,
We
you want to bounce
can
back
do
and forth.
3. We can do 3 each. Yeah. I always struggle with the outfield selections because it's like you're just like, oh, this guy and this guy and this guy, and you're like halfway down the list, you know?
Yeah,
And you like
I did
scroll
the
to the bottom
same.
and
I
you're
did
just
the
like, oh
same thing. And I
shoot.
was like, oh no,
Yeah, like, oh
missed
shoot,
someone.
like where am I gonna put Mike Trout? Like, oh gosh, you know, yeah, I always end up doing that. This is always the hardest for me to just choose 3 guys because they put so many guys as the choices. Yeah, why don't you name your 3 for the American League?
Okay, for the American League, I chose Aaron Judge, obviously.
Mhm.
Yeah, I said he's the 1B to Jose Ramirez's 1A for AL MVP at the current moment in time. Mike Trout is the GOAT. I think he's on track to become the best baseball player that has ever lived. So, of course, it's Mike Trout. He's having another good season. The third spot is one I kind of struggle with. I looked at like Buxton for a bit, and I was like, oh, okay, I could see that. But I'm going to go with the one that's kind of been steady for most of the season, despite a little bit of an injury woe. Relatively recently, that's Taylor Ward. I just went with he was a safe pick to me, safer than Buxton, who has played well recently but kind of has struggled. Yeah, so Taylor Ward. I've got Judge, Trout, and Ward for my 3.
Yeah, I agree on this first 2, Judge and Trout, and I really considered Ward. I considered a couple other guys like I think Kyle Tucker's really underrated.
Yeah, I
and
thought
his
about
stats,
him too.
Yeah, his stats don't really aren't reminiscent of what he is actually doing on the field. I think he gets really unlucky a lot. They don't bat him high enough in the lineup. Stanton is obviously another guy who's really interesting. And I think Springer is super underrated as well. Springer is always killing it for the Blue Jays. He's been staying off the IL this year. And I love what Julio Rodriguez has been doing as well. I think he's if he keeps going up, I think people could just vote for him just because they like him a lot. And if Luis Robert wasn't injured multiple times this season, I think he would be in the conversation. But I went with the guy you mentioned. I went with Buxton. I just think he's so good. He just has so much talent. I don't think the stats reflect how good he's actually been this season. Obviously, he had that little slump, but I think that's a result of his BABIP being super low. And I think he's just going to go off in the next month and will just be like clearly deserving of it with Judge and Trout. But I love what Taylor Ward's been doing this year. Super, super great story. Still has an OPS over 1,000, but Buxton's 17 homers are really good. I think that's like second in the American League, second or third, right up there. But he's been absolutely killing it.
Yeah, I literally it was almost a coin flip between Ward and Buxton for me. Yeah, I think both of them are deserving, and I think I kind of based mine on how the season has gone so far, and not with a projection into the future. And I think,
me too. Yeah,
I think Buxton he's going to pick it up, and he's going to be right there. And I'll let you go first for the NL.
Sure.
Give me your 3.
Yeah, this one was a little harder. I think there were 2 guys that were obviously super clear, and that's Mookie Betts, who's been absolutely insane this year. I've probably said that a lot this episode. That's normally what happens when you talk about the best players in the league is I'm going to say people are absolutely insane a lot. And from there, it was just like, I have no idea who to choose from there. Like, I will get to the guys that I mentioned, but I don't know. There were just so many guys like underperforming and so many guys that like have had like okay seasons. Like Juan Soto's been all right. I wanted to vote for him, but I couldn't get myself to do it because he hasn't been super amazing. Like I think he could end up being worthy of an all-star vote by the time we get there. But yeah, I don't know. It was like so hard. So many guys were just underperforming. Brian Reynolds not doing good. Tommy Pham's been like solid, but like not all-star level. Marte in his first year not been that crazy or anything. Just like so many guys that are like underperforming or just like not like blowing your socks off. So I went with some interesting picks. I think my second pick, other than Betts, Ronald Acuna. I don't think that's like a crazy pick. He obviously missed the whole first month, so he doesn't really have the time, but I think he's going to be a clear shoo-in once we get to the All-Star game itself. But he's batting over 300, 6 homers. He's got more than 10 steals. He's been killing it, 943 OPS. And then I had to go with my hometown boy, Jock Peterson. Been absolutely killing it at the plate. 13 home runs on the season. Had that huge 3 home run game that came with a walk-off single as well. Or no, it wasn't a walk-off single. It was a go-ahead single. He's been super dope this year. I think he's been really underrated. I don't know. I'm not sure he actually does end up making it with all these other guys that could turn it around, but I love what Jock's been doing, and I think he deserves some recognition.
I completely agree with you, and our list was actually really similar, apart from
who
one
could have seen
other
that
pick.
coming?
I had Mookie, of course. He's Mookie. I also had Jock. Jock's been really good this year, and a lot of people have not realized that. He's worth just the one WAR, but that's mainly kind of brought down by his defense being not so good. He is causing immense harm to any baseball that enters his general vicinity this year. He's hit 13 home runs, 32 RBIs. He's Jock Peterson. He's just got crazy power. He's in one of the top percentiles for hard hit rate this year, which is just insane. He's in the 98th percentile for hard hit rate, 99th percentile for average exit velocity. He's just insane. Not striking out super bad. He's a guy that is prone to striking out, walking pretty well as well. I like Jock Peterson. And another one I made is a little bit of a homer pick, but you're going to have to hear me out and you're going to have to look at his stats to understand where I'm coming from. And I went with Ian Happ. And if you've looked at Ian Happ this year, he has had a career year so far. The only thing he's not really doing is hitting for the power that he's used to hitting for. Just the 7 home runs, and I know that's kind of like, oh, he's at 7, whatever. 25 last year. He's striking out way down. Last year, he struck out almost 30% of the time, 29.2% of the time. This year's 19.6. He's hitting for a ton of contact. He's hit the 7 home runs, like I said, walking a lot higher than he normally does as well. He's just been a great player this year. Plus in the field, he's been a really just solid player, worth just about 2 WAR 1.9 current moment in time. I mean, I think you could make a case for Acuna, but he's kind of been up and down, still struggling to shake off the injury that, of course, he's been having to deal with. But Ian Happ, of course, like I said, he's in the 97th percentile for walk percentage. He's insane. He walks all the time, drives and runs on a terrible Cubs team. He's got, let me see if I can find how many hits he's collected this year, but I believe he's on a career high pace for that as well. I went with Ian Happ. I think you can make a case for him easily. Of course, I'm going to try to because I'm a Cubs fan. He's one of the only reasons to watch currently. Ian Happ, he's sick.
Yeah, good pick. I definitely considered him. I think it's interesting that I think the NL outfield choices are very interesting with like him and Jock and Mookie. Like you got like one complete and utter superstar, and then you got 2 guys that are just like,
here's Jock and Ian Happ.
Okay, all stars. All right, dope.
Yeah. So shout out to Ian Happ. Totally deserving. I don't know if he'll keep up the pace that he's on right now, but I would love to see him get an all-star nod. He's having a great season that he really deserves to be recognized for. Still relatively young. I know it feels like he's kind of been around for a long time now, because he's kind of been up and down and just kind of phased in and out, been good and been bad. He's still just 27. So a lot to come from Ian Happ. Hopefully he can get his first all-star nod this year.
Yep. And lastly, we've got a designated hitter, which was a really hard one. I now that I'm looking back at the list, because it was like how you were talking about how you chose Devers and you're just like, wait, somebody's missing. That's how I just felt when I was looking back through the American League designated hitters, because I chose Yordan Alvarez super fast. He's been absolutely insane this year. Batting over 300, 17 home runs. He's basically been he's like Aaron Judge from the left side. He just hits it harder than anybody from the left side of the plate. He's really good. He's just a massive presence at the plate that's super intimidating, and I think there's other guys that have been really interesting. I think JD Martinez absolutely killing it once again, batting over 340. He's only got 7 home runs, but he hit 2 in the last 3 games, so pretty dope for him. But I somehow forgot about Shohei Ohtani. Maybe I was just thinking of him as a pitcher, or maybe this should just be like a 2-way player. I don't think there's any doubt that he will make it. I think if he doesn't get voted in as the DH, like too many people choose Yordan, that they'll just put him in as a pitcher. So I think he's going to make it no matter what, but I don't know how I missed that. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani deserves all the praise in the world. I don't think he's been as amazing as a DH solely as Yordan is, but obviously Shohei Ohtani is like best talent in all of baseball.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I saw Ohtani and I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty easy. And I like glanced back up at the top of the list. Like I literally had clicked Ohtani and I'm like, oh my God, there's Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we just talked about him last podcast. I can at least plug that. So I picked Yordan. I mean, he's having a great season, of course, very deserving of the extension. He's so good to be so young. Jordan for me is really good. JD Martinez has like the most interesting case for it, which I think was pretty cool. And I thought about him as well a little bit. He's hitting 347 right now on the season with just the 7 home runs. But I mean, if he's going to continue hitting like that, and then he just starts to hit for power, I don't know how like you could outpace that for a DH. If he hits like 350 and then by the All-Star break, he's hit like 25 home runs, or like probably not 25, but like if he hits like 10 more home runs, like, and he's at like 17 and he's hitting like 350 or 355, like I don't know how I couldn't vote for him. So yeah, JD Martinez making a tough case. I don't think the NL was nearly as hard for me.
No,
personally,
it was really easy.
No, it's Bryce Harper. Yeah, it's Bryce Harper. Yeah,
killing it with a partially torn UCL. He said to his other National League DH candidate, Max Muncy, said, "This is how you play with a partially torn UCL," because Muncy has been really struggling partially because of that elbow problem, and Bryce literally just doesn't care. He made my top performers article once again, and I wrote that I don't know how well I do against major league pitching, but I definitely know I wouldn't get any hits if my elbow wasn't working. Like Bryce Harper's been absolutely, okay, I'll say it again, he's been absolutely insane. Just backing up his NL MVP. It should just be the title of the episode. Free baseball number 19, absolutely insane. Yeah, he doesn't stop. NL MVP last year was second ever. I don't think he's going to win it this year because he just doesn't play in the field anymore because of that injured arm. It doesn't matter to him. He's got 15 home runs, batting over 315 at 316, so just barely, but he does not care. He's just so deserving of another All-Star selection to add to his career resume.
Yeah, and he's just so good, and it's difficult to really see how anyone else in this category, especially on the list, is going to keep up with him. I know like William Contreras is having a decent season. Garrett Cooper's hitting for like decent average. Nelson Cruz isn't doing much of anything this year. He's got 35 RBIs, but he's not hitting for that much power. One of the ones that I like am very fascinated by, just because they're such a weird player to be having a good season, and hopefully we'll pick it up. Maybe make it a case. Probably won't. I really like Connor Joe. I kind of looked at him and I was like, oh, okay, he's having a better season than I thought. And I've watched him some. But yeah, Bryce Harper is a beast. I don't know how anyone could see this, just be like, oh, I'm not going to vote for Bryce Harper unless you're just a hater, or vote for your homer team. But yeah, Bryce Harper's by far and away the best DH in the National League right now.
Yes, sir.
And on that note, there's no pitchers on this list, but of course, I think it's time that we ought to bring in the closer for this year's podcast.
Yes, what a transition.
We'll wrap up episode 19 of Free Baseball. Make the call to the bullpen. I'll hand the phone over to Jake, and he can make the call to today's closer.
Hello, is this the bullpen? Yes, sir. And we've got a lefty to bring in tonight, and it's going to be one that maybe not many people have heard of. Obviously, I wanted to go with a little older guy, older as in he played longer ago than the last 3 guys we mentioned that played in the 2000s for most of their career. So we've got Craig Lefferts is coming in. Not really even a well-known guy when he was playing. He had a 12-year career from 1983 to 1994 that spanned across the Cubs, the Padres, the Giants, the Orioles, the Rangers, and the Angels. He was born in Munich, Germany, but I wouldn't necessarily call him German because it was mostly a result of his father being like an Air Force officer. So he was moving all around the world for a lot of his young life. He lived in Sacramento out here in California, lived in Japan, lived in Topeka, Cape Cod, and San Diego before settling down in Tampa Bay. I think he went to University of Arizona, where he I don't even think he started playing baseball until he was 12 because he had like asthma and stuff. So he's one of those late bloomers. He didn't even like make the high school team until super late when his dad like asked like, hey, can you let my son play? So he really got to a late start to to his baseball career, and that led to him being drafted in the 7th round by the Royals in 1979 draft. And he did not sign because he said, I don't want to be drafted that early. He was drafted by the Cubs in the 9th round in the following year, which was pretty interesting. Then he chose to sign. He said, oh shoot, on this pace I'm going to be drafted in the 11th round next year. Or maybe he was a senior and he didn't have a choice. But yeah, so he debuted 3 years later, in 1983, with those Cubs. He faced the Expos in his first game. He tossed 2 innings. He allowed a hit, 2 walks, and an earned run, and struck out 1 batter. He was a lefty with a fastball and a screwball, which is sort of like reverse curve, sort of like a more deadly breaking changeup. It's what you would think of Devin Williams' airbender pitch as a screwball, a pitch that moves away from the pitcher's throwing hand. So the opposite of a curve, like I stated. And he later added a slider in his career. I don't know if that's how late into his career, but he was a 3-pitch pitcher by the end of his career. He started out his career, obviously, with those Cubs. He had a solid rookie season, 89 innings, 3.13 ERA, 60 strikeouts. But the Cubs, I don't know why, they weren't enamored with him. They traded him to the Padres in a 3-team deal that involved the Expos in the following offseason. And he had a few solid seasons in San Diego. He had a 2.13 ERA and 10 saves and 105.2 innings pitched in his first season in San Diego. 2 years later, he led the majors with 83 appearances while pitching to a 3.09 ERA in 1986. That remains the single season franchise record for the Padres, the 83 appearances. And that season, he hit the last walk-off home run by a pitcher in Major League history, which is that's a pretty cool thing to hold on to it if you're not like, I don't know. He never made an all-star team. He never won any awards. So it's pretty cool to like, I don't know, to have that on your Wikipedia page. Like, I was the last pitcher to hit a walk-off home run. And we may never see that again. I don't know if you could consider Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher if he does ever do that again. If he does ever do that, which I'm sure Shohei will hit a walk-off at some point. So I think Craig Lefferts is going to be safe in holding on to that title for the rest of his life. He was traded to the Giants, though, after that season, next season, mid-season, during the summer of 87. And he had a couple impressive seasons the following couple of years. He tossed 92 innings with a 2.92 ERA, saved 11 ball games, and posted a career low 1.05 whip in his first full season in San Francisco in 1988. And he followed that up with 107 innings out of the pen with a 2.69 ERA. I think that was not his career low yet. Just about second best career ERA season. And he saved 20 ball games in 1989. Pretty dope 2.5-year career for the Giants. And then he became a free agent, signed back with the San Diego Padres. He must have really enjoyed his time over there. It was prior to the 1990 season. And he had back-to-back career best seasons there. The first one might be, without a doubt, his career best season, where he had a 2.52 ERA. He saved the most games of his career in a single season with 23, 1990, and then 1991. He pitched to a 3.91 ERA, obviously not as impressive as a career low 2.52 ERA, but he did tie his career high with 23 saves, 1991. And then after 2 amazing seasons as a closer, they moved him to the rotation in 1992, which is like, we've done a lot of these bringing in the closers. I think this is the 17th one we've ever done. And we see a lot of the time guys start out as starters and then move to the bullpen once they don't pan out, or maybe in like a John Smoltz, who we'll cover at some point, like has to move to the bullpen because of arm injuries and stuff. But this one was a weird one where he just starts out as a closer and then they're just like, maybe he would be pretty good as a starter. So he had a career high of 196 in the 3rd innings pitch after having a career high of like 107.2 before that. Huge jump, almost 90 innings, 3.76 ERA, and a career high 104 strikeouts, which came solely from the volume that he was putting up in that 92 season in the rotation for the Padres. And then he was traded at the waiver deadline, which is no longer a thing in baseball. It's the August 31st because they have the trade deadline on July 31st, and they had a waiver deadline where it's like you could put a guy on waivers and whoever would be able to claim him, and then you'd have to work out a deal with them to trade that player to that team. And that would be on August 31st, a month later. They got rid of that because it was very convoluted, really confusing. So he was traded to the Orioles the end of August. Didn't really do much there. Was signed by the Rangers as a free agent prior to the 93 season. After leaving the Orioles, he struggled to a 6.05 ERA, marking the downturn of his career. He then signed with the Angels as a free agent prior to the next season, and he had a 4.67 ERA, and he had 1 last save as a closer. For his career, though, he had 8.9 baseball reference WAR across 1,145 and 2/3 innings pitched, where he struck out 719 batters, saving 101 ball games with a 3.43 ERA and a 1.25 WHIP. And those 101 saves are good for 157th all-time on the career saves leaderboard. And that is Craig Lefferts, the last pitcher to hit a home run, a walk-off home run in Major League history. And he is here to close out just another podcast from the Free Baseball Boys at the Athletes Hub.
And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check back with us every week, not just next week, but next week is going to be our 20th show. We're going to try to do something fun for it. Make sure you check out all of our articles at theathleteshub.org. Everything that we're putting out, trying to get out as much content as possibly can. Really good stuff, really good reads. Check out Jake on there as well. All of his fantasy baseball content, regular baseball content too. And check him out with the pitcher list and read all of his articles there as well. That's all we've got for today. But like I said, make sure you join us next time. And that's it. We'll see you later.